Hi, welcome to the Shepherd's Rest Doc Talk. This is episode 172B.
I'm Kim, this is Julie.
Yes, this is the Chronicles of the Apostles portion. So we are...
Not Chronicles of Narnia? Because
No,
that's all I
not
could think of when
Chronicles
you
of
said
Narnia,
Chronicles.
and not Chronicles of the Messiah. We did that 2 years ago. We are going through the book of Acts, and this week we are in Acts 12.
Okay.
It is Acts 12, 1 through 24, I believe. Yes, 1 through 24, and it follows along with Shemot. This week, I'm going to do something a little bit different. Instead of really concentrating on what the scripture says, we're going to read between the lines a little bit.
A little midrash.
We're going to, well, yes, we're going to do a little midrash, but it's really just taking a lot of extra biblical sources and finding out a little bit of history that's going on at this time so we can better understand why these things are happening this week in the scriptures.
So historical background that fleshes out the story.
Yeah, see, that's a much better way of putting it. Anyway, all right, so let's just start in 12:1. And about that time, Herod, the sovereign, put forth his hands to do evil to some from the assembly. And you think to yourself, well, why? You know, because we just saw, historically speaking, last week, this is speaking of Herod Agrippa. He is now considered the king of the Jews.
Okay.
No one has held that title since his grandfather, who was Herod the Great, when Yeshua was born. All right.
Great bad guy.
Yes, he was. And we're going to see this is a great bad guy too. So this is Herod Agrippa. And last week, historically speaking, he was saving the Jewish people from Caesar Gaius. Yeah, G-A-U-I-S.
Did you hear me trying to pronounce
Or
things
I-U-S.
in the last talk? Yeah.
I'm just not sure exactly how to pronounce it, but...
you historians out there,
yes,
you're already correcting her.
Yes, it was his best friend, and he ended up saving the Jewish people because Gaius, we're going to call him Gaius. Gaius was wanting to put the abomination, a statue of himself in the Holy of Holies, and he was actually sending it to...
the guy we can't say.
Well, he was sending it to Jerusalem via somewhere in Tiberias. It was coming over from the Persian area, actually. So he was sending it over, and through negotiations, Agrippa saved the Jewish people from this idolatrous statue being put up inside the temple. Now, what Gaius really did was he said, "That's fine, I won't do it," and he stopped it, and then he had another one made and was sending that over via Rome. All right.
Okay.
So that's kind of where we left off last week. So you're like, well, why is all of a sudden he persecuting the way? So now I'm going to give you a little historical background on Agrippa so we can understand this persecution. All right, so like I said, Agrippa was the grandson of Herod the Great. And after Herod slaughtered his father, Bernice, who was his mother, took all the kids to Rome to be schooled, actually, to enroll them in the finest schools. And she became best friends with Antonia, which was the daughter of Mark Antony.
Okay.
And
everybody knows that name.
Right. And so... he ran around with all the royals. He grew up in the royal courts, and he became best friends with the son of Caesar, who his name was Drusus. All right, the son. Drusus. All right. So, but then Drusus suddenly died, and then Tiberius Caesar said, "I don't want any of his friends in my sight," because it just reminded him of his sorrow. Yeah. So he was kicked out, and then his mother Bernice died. He squandered all of the fortune, and he found himself out on the street in a lot of debt. And he had married a woman from his Hasmonean dynasty. Okay. All right. So that was his only connection to being Jewish.
Right.
Because
by marriage.
By marriage. Now someone Herod the Great's wife maybe was
his wife was Hasmonean,
which gave him a little bit of Jewishness, but his wife was really his connection into the Jewish scene. So Agrippa had incurred all this debt in Rome, okay? And he had no one left because his mother Bernice had died.
Right.
His sister Bernice, the second, I guess, little Bernice, had married Antipas, Herod Antipas. Well, Philip first, remember?
Yes,
and
I knew that.
And then she fell in love with Herod Antipas, so she was in the Tiberias area. So when he had accrued all this debt and had nowhere else to go, they went back to Judea because that's where his wife was from. That's where his sister was.
Okay.
And he was getting into Judea at the same time that Yeshua was ministering and his death, burial, and resurrection. Around the same time of his passion, which I find it very interesting because we're going to see how he eventually gets to the status of King of the Jews.
Right.
But when he got to Jerusalem, you have Yeshua at the pinnacle of his ministry, doing what he came to do, and he's destitute and suicidal. All right. So he pleads to Antipas, and Antipas gives him a job. Eventually, Antipas and him get into it. Antipas kicks him out, or actually he doesn't kick him out. His pride, because of Agrippa's pride, he's like, you know what, I'm just leaving. So he leaves, and they eventually go to Antioch. He gets into favor with the governor there. He eventually was accused of something, bribery or taking money. I can't remember exactly what it was, but he had to flee Antioch, and they fled to Alexandria, where the governor over the Jews pleaded with him for a loan.
That's kind of interesting. So he fled to Egypt.
Yes, he fled to Egypt. That is interesting, huh? He fled to Egypt, and the governor would not give him a loan, but he said, your wife is righteous and very pious, and I will give her a loan. So she decided to sign for it, and then she sent him off to Rome to pay off the debts. So he went to Rome, paid off his debts, and became really good friends with Gaius. Remember the guy? Okay, so he rekindled that friendship. All right,
because now he's not the bottom of the barrel anymore.
That's right. So he paid off all his debts after going to Antonia and asking for money. So with the accrued loan and money that he got, he paid off all of his debts. He owed, what was it? Something like the equivalent of $30 million, something crazy like that. I don't even
understand how you can sleep at night knowing you owe people. I guess that's because you have to actually care.
Right.
If you don't care, then it's like,
Exactly.
You can sleep.
It's just Well, his thing was he was always flattering whoever was in charge.
Right.
That's what he did.
Called brown noser.
Yes. But that's how he saved the Jewish people. All right? Because he flattered Gaius, his best friend.
See, the Lord will use everyone's.
That's right. That's
good
right,
or bad. Right. The Lord will use them.
But we're actually not there yet because Tiberius is still the Caesar.
Okay.
Yeshua has died and resurrected. Again. Yes, and rose again. I hate to say it like that, but so now he's rekindling that friendship with Gaius. But he and Gaius have this private conversation about how he should be the Caesar and it shouldn't go to Drusus's son and just all of these little antics. So someone overheard it and went to Caesar and he was thrown in jail. All right, now we're getting to the good part. In jail, there was a prophecy given over him by a German, I know, crazy, a German barbarian, and it was called the Bubo Prophecy. All right?
Okay, sorry.
Don't laugh. Bubo, B-O-B-U, prophecy. And a Bubo, or a Bobu, or however you say it.
Boo-boo, that poor Bubo.
No, however you say it, it's an owl. That's what it is, all right? So it's an owl prophecy. So he's in chains, and this man comes up to him and says, look, the God who put you here has shown me that just as you see this bird, all right, you are going to be released and upheld to one of the highest dignities in the land. So it's kind of like a Joseph, a reenactment of Joseph.
That's what I was thinking.
Okay?
It was like, wow.
You are going to be released from here, gone to the highest in the land. You're going to be happy until the day that you see this bird again, and then you will die. All right, so that was the prophecy, which he just said, okay, whatever. So Tiberius got sick and died, and Gaius, because of some kind of omen or something going on in the Caesar court, Drusus's son did not get it, but Gaius got it. He released his friend from prison and made him king of the Jews and sent him back to the Judean area. All right.
What's interesting is that it said the God who put you here, yet he doesn't ever acknowledge that God.
No, but isn't it interesting that he says, now I'm going to put you as king over the Jews. Let's see, you saved the Jews before.
Right.
I'm going to put you as king over the Jews. Now let's see what you do with it.
Yeah.
Right. So he gets over there, and him and Antipas are constantly, they don't really like each other.
Yeah.
And Antipas's wife is not happy that King Agrippa is named king of the Jews, and her husband's just a tetrarch.
Right.
He's been there the whole time. Right. Agrippa was some poor schmuck that they had to
maybe they used the two of
to.
them when they talked about the prodigal son.
Maybe so. King Antipas and Agrippa. But anyway, so Agrippa devises this plan and says, so Antipas is building an army.
Okay.
Not to fight the Parthians. The next door neighbors. People. Okay. Yeah. But Agrippa sends a letter to Rome that he's building an army to conquer for an insurrection against Rome. So Antipas,
right, because the rumor goes right.
Yes. So Antipas is kicked out, and now Agrippa is king over the entire Judean, Samaria, the northern and the southern, and he is giving the welcome by the Jewish people like David did, and they said he was a king like David,
right?
Which is so bizarre because they just had Yeshua,
right,
and they killed him.
So
and here we are with Agrippa, who is very two-faced. And what I mean by that is when he's in Jerusalem, he's very pious and he's Torah abiding and he wants to learn and he's very, he's all the things. He found out what the halakha of different things, and he made sure that he, in public,
right, his food was a certain way, everything.
Right. So half the time he was in Jerusalem acting this way. The other half he was in Caesarea, which was nicknamed Little Rome, and he was acting just like a Roman pagan.
Right.
All right.
Well, he was when in Rome, do as Rome.
That's right. That's exactly what he did. When in Caesarea, act like a Roman pagan.
That's right.
That's exactly what he did. All right, so the first year that he came into this power over the entire area, it was a Shemitah year.
Okay.
So he gathered all of Israel, and he was going to read the Torah.
Okay.
All right, now, if you remember the stories of Herod the Great, when he got to the part of Deuteronomy, I think it's 17, 15, it says, you may not put a foreigner over yourselves who is not your countrymen. When King Herod, his grandfather, read that, he asked the Sanhedrin, okay, what does that mean? And the Sanhedrin told him, and he didn't like the answer, so he killed them all, right? Well, Agrippa decided he wasn't going to do that.
Did he leave one alive?
I don't remember. I think so. I think he did. But Agrippa decided he wasn't going to go that route because he didn't want to shed blood like his grandfather did. So when he devised this plan that when he got to that part, he would cry. So when he read that part, tears started streaming down his eyes and he cried. And the people felt sorry for him. And they said, so they cried out, Agrippa, you are our brother. You are our brother. You are our brother. Said it 3 times. Okay. And to let him know, we consider you Jewish because his actions in Jerusalem were Jewish. And now they had a king. They wanted a king. They're just so sick of the opposite that they're willing to take whatever he's
and remember, he's already protected them twice. And they were looking for a king who would rule and support them, defend them against Rome. That's why Yeshua wasn't so popular, because they're like, even in First of Acts. Okay, so when you coming back, where's your legions of soldiers so we can take over Rome?
Right.
So I can see where those people who didn't accept him are like, oh, there's our soldier.
So according to some extra biblical sources, when he made this proclamation, when the people made the proclamation about him being the king, it was only the disciples of Yeshua that were not happy with it and refused to acknowledge him as the king. Now,
makes sense.
Now we come to 12:1, and it says, and about that time, Herod the sovereign put forth his hands to do evil to some of those in the assembly. That's why.
Right.
Okay, so I led you all up to that point so you would understand.
So they weren't calling
chapter 12.
You are our brother. They were not saying that.
They were not saying that. In fact, they were speaking out against it, just like John the Baptist spoke out against Antipas.
Okay.
Herod Antipas. Okay. So now we'll just read through and then we'll stop, and it's pretty short. All right. And about that time, Herod the sovereign put forth his hand to do evil to some of the assembly. And he killed Jacob, the brother of John, with a sword. Now, if you go to Matthew 20:22, it's kind of funny because James and John, the two Zebedee brothers, that James is the one that was killed.
Right.
James and John's mother said, when you get to your position,
right.
I want my
left
sons
right.
to sit, on the right and the left. And he said, are you willing to drink the cup, which I am?
Right.
Which they said yes. So,
He did.
And here he is. He did. He that absolutely did happen.
He gets to stick to his word.
Yes. And seeing that it was pleasing to the Yehudim, so those in charge, he saw that it was politically appealing. He proceeded further to arrest Peter as well, and they were the days, and that was in the days of unleavened bread. So all this happening at the time of Passover. Yeah. Can you imagine the toughs like, oh, this is exactly what happened to our master.
Right, I was at the same time, yeah. So it happened to the head, now it's happened to the body.
That's right. So we know, since we've been going through Acts, that those in charge, not the Sanhedrin, but the Sadducean people in charge, and now these are Annas' sons who are in charge, the high priests now. So it's the same people in Yeshua's time. It's the same people now. They're all
it's
like,
the same spirit.
Yes. And it's very pleasing to do away with the way, because they're just getting in their way. You know what I mean? All right. And enforce. So when he had seized him, he put him in prison and delivered him to 4 quads of soldiers to watch over him, intending to bring him before the people after Passover. So he didn't want to do this until after the week of Passover.
Just like with Messiah, they really didn't. They said, let's wait until, and they got forced into their hands so it fit the Lord's timeline.
And now we're going to see it's going to get forced, but by the Lord. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for that timeline.
Yep. In 5 it says, so Peter was indeed kept in prison, but prayer was earnestly made to Elohim on his behalf by the assembly. And when Herod was about to bring him out, the night Kepha was sleeping, bound with 2 chains between 2 soldiers, and the guards before the door were keeping the prison. And see, a messenger of Yahweh stood by, and a light shone in the building. And smiting the side of Kepha, he raised him up, saying, get up quickly. And his chains fell off his hands. And the messenger said to him, gird yourself and bind on your sandals. And he did so. And he said to him, put on your garment and follow me. This is exactly what they said what Yahweh said to the Israelites at Passover.
Yeah.
Gird yourself, get your
ready.
sandals on, get ready, because we're about to move. And this is Passover time. And coming out, he followed him and knew not what was done by the messenger was true, but thought he was seeing a vision. So he thought this was all just a dream.
Right, he doesn't wake up.
Yeah. And when they had passed the first and the second guard post, they came to the iron gate that leads to the city, which opened to them by itself. And they went out and went down the street, and the messenger instantly withdrew from him. So Peter, to make a long story short, Peter returns to the house where all the prayers were being offered up on his behalf.
Okay.
And it's kind of funny because he starts calling out to the disciples and knocks on the door, and a servant girl comes, and she's like, it's Peter. And instead of opening the door, she goes back and tries to convince everyone that Peter's outside, which no one believes her.
Right.
Instead of just
opening the door
opening
and
the door.
Yeah.
I know there's something more to that, but I can't. It's not coming to me right now. Anyway. And that goes all the way through 17. He basically says, look, I can't stay here in Jerusalem. I have to flee. So he does.
Right.
He flees.
Right.
And then picking up in 19, it says, and when Herod had searched for him and did not find him, he examined the guards and ordered them to be led away, to be killed. Right. And he went down from Judah to Caesarea and stayed there. The reason he had to rush off to Caesarea is because the Caesar at that time had been off on a big trip, and he had come back to Rome, and everyone was like, oh, he's not dead. So they welcomed him back from this long trip, and celebrations went out all throughout the land. So he had to get back to Caesarea to do his duty of offering sacrifices to Caesar. And the two-faced.
Yeah,
exactly. So he did that. And then let's just end on this. And it says, and at the appointed day, Herod, having put on his royal clothes, sat on his throne and gave an address to them. And the people kept shouting, "The voice of a mighty one and not of a man." And instantly a messenger of Yahweh smote him, because he did not give the esteem of Elohim, and he became worm-eaten and he died. And the word of Elohim went on growing and spreading. Now this is when Peter was able to go back into the land, but I want to read something that Josephus writes about Agrippa. It said, King Agrippa saw an owl sitting on a rope above his head. He saw it was ill tidings. He fell into deep sorrow, and a sharp pain hit his stomach, and he died 5 days later. Which, there's the end of that omen, or the prophecy that was given when he was in prison. So just as the prophecy, it can come from anywhere.
Right.
That's kind of my point, to even bring all of this up. And I just thought that was kind of neat that he ended up dying because he allowed them to worship him as a deity, and didn't see that he was put in that place by the Lord, as evil as he was.
He never really acknowledged when it said, the God who put you here. He never.
He never did.
Yet he's pretending or working as the king of, or servant of the living God, but it still doesn't.
Right. All right, well, that's all I have for you today, and it was so enjoyable. I know I threw a lot of information at you.
So good.
I really thought it would be neat to find out what's going on behind the scenes in history, so we could really understand why they're being persecuted and why this is happening.
Right, more is between the two chapters, 11 and 12.
Exactly, exactly right. Because Luke has to have this big span of time.
Right.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us today, and we will see you next week.
Shalom.